Welcome to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprofit.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey, and today we're going to keep on with our list for 2020. We're going to do sleepers today, our top 5 sleepers for 2020. We're trying to take a stab at it at least. It's going to be, not all the rankings are obviously terribly accurate yet, so we're kind of looking for players, 40 range and further down the list than that, I would say, but try not to go too deep because we're going to do deep sleepers again as well in a couple weeks. So we're going to do some sleepers as we go, but before we get into all of that, want to once again talk about MyBookie one last time here for the year. MyBookie sponsoring this episode again, so go there and definitely use that promo code PROPHET, PROPHET. Get yourself hooked up there. And last week we went, the MyBookie point spreads again, and we picked the Super Bowl, Jeff. And I believe I picked the Super Bowl correctly on the lines. So after the season, if you want to count even the postseason, all the regular season games, all the postseason games, we end up exactly tied.
Yeah.
How's that happen?
I know. So you beat me by one game in the postseason, and then I beat you by one game throughout the season.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's
came down to the Super Bowl.
Crazy. That whole thing, and we end up with the same amount. So you won the regular season, but I guess I tie you up at the end. But it's crazy how that works.
I know. I feel like it really came down to one play.
Really?
Mahomes to Tyree.
Yeah, that would have been game over if they didn't get that.
I think it would have been.
Or if Garoppolo had hit Sanders on that deep ball on third down, that would have ended it. But
that's what it felt like.
But, it's not over, though, at MyBookie. You should go over there, use that promo code, because, this weekend, you can, seriously, go bet on some XFL. If you're don't consider yourself a degenerate or anything like that betting on XFL. I think it's some fun. You go, except I don't really know how you pick the games week one. I'll tell you that, because none of us know anything about any of these teams. But, hey, maybe pick some players you like. If you're, I don't know. If you were an Ohio State fan, you got Cardell Jones out there or something. Or if you want to see if Christine Michael can actually do anything in another league. We talked about him for too long in the NFL. So players like that, go check out mybookie.com. Get in on the action. Again, this weekend for XFL. And shoot, you got college basketball really gearing up finally. And, all that. You got golf. You can go bet on some golf too. That's always fun.
Actually, it can be fun. It can be. I have done those before.
So, but go to MyBookie, use that promo code PROPHET. All right, so it's time for our top 5 sleepers for 2020. So, I didn't really have like a real rule for where I picked players. I tried to keep it beyond 40, but it was really just I think I ended up doing that, but it depends on what rankings you're looking at. And I tried to pick guys who there were actually a couple players I might have to see if you pick any of them maybe, but there's a couple of them I kind of just didn't pick, even though I think they might do something. Because I had a couple guys that are just like I've talked about them too much in the past. I just don't feel like doing it again. So, but let's go 1 to 5 again. Let's go 1 to 5. Let's start with the best. Let's start with the best, Jeff. Let's see. I want to see you. What do you have at number 1? I don't know if we're gonna have any, any of the same here at all.
I know.
I don't know where we're going with this.
I'll be honest. I really didn't feel very strongly about, and I feel like all 5 of them are sleepers, obviously. But I don't feel like I have that number 1 guy where I'm
not
like,
yet,
they
right?
gotcha.
Not yet, yeah.
I don't.
I feel the same way.
It's very difficult because a lot of guys I wanted to put on this list, I would, I kind of looked through 3 different rankings, and one of them would have him pretty high, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. But so I'll just say my number 1. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm actually gonna go Baker Mayfield.
There we go.
So, okay, he got really hyped last year. I think for good reason. He did not perform. He really didn't perform. He did very, very badly to the point where everyone looks at him as radioactive. Every single list has him 20 or lower, at least from what I have seen. So if I just call him QB 20, he is probably not even going to end up on anyone's list because, depending on if you're just playing one quarterback league, say 8 teams actually draft 2 quarterbacks. Even in that scenario, which usually doesn't happen anyway, he would be in the free agent list. Unheard of. He was drafted as like the number 5 QB last year. I do have to say, I think it was a sophomore slump. I don't think that it will be that bad. He still has a ton of weapons no matter what happens to, if they decide to ship someone off or whatever it may be. Njoku is finally going to be healthy.
Maybe.
He obviously, maybe. He took a knock last year. Odell, if he is still there, assuming he will be, I think he's too good to repeat that. Jarvis Landry was very good last year. You're still going to have a running game between Chubb and Hunt. So maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I think that when I look at him as the QB 20, I have to take a roll of the dice and say, is this guy actually going to live up to the hype? Because we saw flashes of greatness his rookie year, if I may call it that. Sophomore year, he didn't have it. So, change up with the coach. Maybe that gets him back on track. Mayfield, my number 1, if you want to call it the number 1.
He's not on my list, but yeah, I'm on board for sure. I mean, he's the definition of a post-hype sleeper for sure. He'll make if we come up with a post-hype sleeper list as well at some point, which I always we haven't really made it an episode, I don't believe, before, but it's always like one of the Instagram posts we have over at Instagram.com/fantasyfootballprofit.
Nice plug.
So I usually do a post-hype sleeper list every year, and guys who were hyped the year before, whatever, and never lived up to it, and who I believe can now. And I think Baker would probably be number 1 on that list. I mean, I haven't thought about that yet, but he definitely would be number 1 on the list. I'm on board. Like I've said, I really believe. I mean, I don't. It's hard to say this because I don't know Baker, don't know anything about the guy and his work ethic, but I kind of feel like he's going to put in the work this offseason. Like I just feel like he didn't. Again, just completely speculation. I don't know any of this. It feels like he didn't put in the work last year, and I think he's going to put in the work this year. That's great analysis, I know, because I know so much about that. So, but that's just my feeling. That's my gut feeling on what's going on with that. But I like the pick. He didn't make my list, but yeah, I like the pick. So my number 1, I don't think there's a lot of people that are just going to say this is a terrible, stupid pick. What are you doing? This guy's like a 3rd string running back. And hey, maybe you might be right. I like the talent though, and I think he has more talent than the guys ahead of him. Well, at least one of them. And so I'm going with Justice Hill from Baltimore Ravens here. And I think he is more talented than Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is a fine running back, but Justice Hill's a better, more talented player. I'm not necessarily saying he's better than or more talented maybe than Mark Ingram right now, but maybe Mark Ingram's good. But he's also 30 some years old, and Justice Hill just is kind of I really liked what I saw from Justice Hill when he played. And I had Mark Ingram on a lot of my teams last year. We had Mark Ingram all over the board. We loved Mark Ingram. So I watched a lot of Baltimore Ravens. Just you watch Baltimore Ravens because of Lamar too. It's just you watch the team. And every time I saw Justice Hill, he just looked good. I liked what I saw. He didn't get a lot of, work, but I liked what I saw from him. I mean, it wasn't always great, but I saw flashes, and I just liked the player. And I don't necessarily think this is going to be like a starting role, but I think he's going to be more involved and become fantasy relevant and become a very good fantasy player. He can do that while Mark Ingram still has relevance too. They can both do this, and he can be involved as well. So I'm going Justice Hill. And if anything did happen to Mark Ingram, injuries, whatever, I think Justice Hill could really step in and be good. I guess the knock is going to be it's the size. He's a little smaller, barely maybe 200 pounds, but I like him. So he's my number 1.
Because I don't really have a structured number 1 as well. Yeah. I don't hate it because I think if you're taking that risk, if you're making that guess, who is going to be the running back in that system, right? We were big fans of Mark Ingram because of that. If he's the guy there, or even to say the 1-2 punch, he's going to be used a lot. He's going to be putting up numbers. So in that case, I do very much like it. I think right now you have to take that gamble and guess which one is it going to be.
And he's currently, if you go to Fantasy Pros, I think he's ranked 47th right now, which it's actually ahead of Gus Edwards. It's a fine rank for where he's. It doesn't mean people are definitely think there's something there. He's not just way down the board like some of the other players maybe that were hyped before. So he's it's a good player to put at the end of the draft. That's going to be one of those really good, I think, end of the draft guys. Throw him on the end of your bench and see what happens. So that's my number 1. Let's go number 2. Jeff, who do you got?
Number 2, and I tell you the truth, this one is going to be a wild one. And I could probably keep him for a deep sleeper if I really wanted to, but I just love the guy so much. And he's a true sleeper. And I see Craig's wheels turning, trying to figure out who I'm going to say before I say it. But I'm going to go with a man that did not even play last year. And that is Bryce Love.
Oh, wow. Wait on
So, yeah, he's pretty deep, right?
Yeah.
So on the ESPN one that I looked at, it'd be running back 59. I think he might be even lower on like Fantasy Pro. So I could have kept him to a deep sleeper. But I think because he didn't play, people kind of forget about him. I really wanted to talk about him right now. He is a very good running back that is the cautionary tale for why you should leave after a major season in the NCAA.
Yep.
So if people do not know who he is a running back for Stanford. He had just an amazing junior year. He decided to come back to play college ball, and at the last game blew out his ACL and was still drafted, even though he blew out his ACL and everyone knew that he was probably going to miss a year. He was still drafted in the 4th round by Washington. So yes, they do have Darius Geis. They have an aging Adrian Peterson. We'll see if they re-sign Chris Thompson and all of that good stuff. But if he gets healthy, and that is the big if, right? That's what we truly don't know right now. But if he gets healthy, he might be the most talented back on that team. And I like Darius Geis. I know Craig really likes Darius Geis, but I like him. I think he's talented. I think Bryce Love is the real deal. He is a speedster. I think he ran like a 4.35. And, it's probably an unofficial time at Stanford or something. But extremely fast. Even though his senior year was not quite as productive as, say, his junior year, and I can look up stats right now, to just give you a glimpse of why I was so excited about him coming out. If he would have came out after his junior year, he played 13 games. He rushed for over 2,100 yards, 19 touchdowns, and he only had 6 receptions, so they hardly even used him in the pass game. He can catch the ball. Senior year, he caught 20 balls. But he's got the big playability at any point. In his junior year, he was averaging 8.1 yards per carry. It's pretty crazy. The next year, he did have a lot less carries. He had like 100 less carries, played in 3 less games, but still averaged 4.5 yards a clip, which was by far his lowest. Freshman year, 7.8. Sophomore year, 7.1. Then 8.1, and then he drops off. So obviously, it was a much worse Stanford team. So you take that into account. The injury just absolutely decimated his stock. I absolutely love him, and I think that Washington is a pretty good spot because I think coming back from an ACL, even though he had an entire year, I think the dual punch of him and Darius Geis could actually help him stay healthy. I think they're going to have to run the ball because they have Haskins under center, and he's going to need help as well. And I think both of these guys, depending on, if they're the only two, I think both of them will get plenty of work. I think, and this guy will be the kind of lightning in the bottle kind of deal. So with all those reasons, he hasn't played a single snap yet in the NFL, but his talent is way too much to overlook him, and he's way too low. So Bryce Love would be my number 2.
Well, there's a path there. There is. There's more of a path for him, honestly, than Justice Hill. Like you said, is Darius Geis healthy? Is he ever going to be healthy?
Right.
Maybe not.
And that's my thing. Even if he is healthy.
Can he stay that?
Yes.
It's not. I love Darius Geis and the talent, and I think he is. If he ever could stay healthy, the guy's going to be amazing. But that's a big question right now. And same thing. Well, Peterson. That's not something stopping Bryce Love. If Bryce Love's talented, Peterson's not in the way. It's not at this point. I was trying to see if I could pull up my. I made a list whenever before his senior year of Bryce Love's of running back prospects for the next year, and he was probably. I think he might have been tops on my list, or he was definitely in my top 5.
In 2017, he would have been the number 1 running back coming out of. Hold it. Who was that? Was that Saquon's year? So
it would have been the same. Yeah. But
so he probably would have been number 2.
No, it wouldn't have been. Well, yeah. But he would have. I know I made that list because I remember clearly him being on it, but I can't find that. But yeah, he was definitely up the, way up the board on that from, that year. But yeah, he has a path. There's a path there. There's a chance. So that's number 2. So I'll go my number 2, and I went N'Keal Harry, who he was hurt, didn't get a lot of a chance there early on, and then he showed signs, I think, in flashes that he could be good, and he's a first round pick for a reason. A lot of this, I mean, Tom Brady's going to be the quarterback for the New England Patriots. I'm sure of it, right? That's what's going to end up happening. I don't believe any of this crap that he's going somewhere else. Why would he? That makes no sense. The teams that would take him, I feel like, aren't contenders. So you can go to the Raiders, go to the Dolphins. That makes literally zero sense. And I've seen enough from N'Keal Harry, I think, flashes that he could be good. And I think but it wasn't enough. But it wasn't enough to put him up the draft boards. You know what I mean? It wasn't enough to move him up the boards, but it was enough to say, okay, this guy might have something. Right now he's ranked about 55th. Yeah, 55, I think, yeah. Right behind John Ross, which that guy's not going to be healthy. And right behind John Ross and Sammy Watkins. But I like N'Keal Harry. I think this is going to be a free pick for you. It's going to be nothing. You don't have to spend anything to get him. He's at the end of a draft. He costs nothing in an auction. Take a chance. I like taking chances on guys like this. So N'Keal Harry, my number 2.
Yeah, I think you're right in the fact that you match his physical attributes with the fact that he was taken in the first round. I don't think that the sun has set on him after one poor year. The thing that does worry me about him was the fact that, yeah, he was banged up, but at the same time, when he wasn't, I feel like there was plenty of opportunity to get himself in that lineup, and he just wasn't able to. So I don't know if that was because Tom Brady never got on the same page as him, or perhaps he was just slow on the uptake, as being a rookie. So worries, but absolutely. I mean, was it a guy like 6'4"? Like, they desperately need wide receivers there. So why would I doubt they wouldn't, put the effort into bringing him along?
All right, so let's go your number 3.
Number 3, I will be less long-winded on this one. It's going to go with Anthony Miller. We've talked about him before. Hey, I think he's a very talented player. He started off slow. His shoulder was injured, and then at the end of the season, he didn't score a lot of touchdowns, so his numbers didn't quite look as good as they should have, but he did go over 100 yards in multiple games down the stretch. They have talent there. I think the problem with Anthony Miller, why I'm put him at number 3 or talking about him in the 3rd spot, is because it really is attached to Trubisky. Do I believe that he can really take that next step? I don't really think so. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But at the same time, Allen Robinson put up pretty decent numbers with him. They're going to keep chucking the ball. So I just, at this point, I just believe in the talent. And right now he was all the way down at wide receiver 54. I saw him a little higher than that, like in the late 40s, depending on where you saw him. So a healthy offseason with Trubisky should help. That's what I'm going with.
Anthony Miller is my number 3 pick as well.
Oh, there we go.
So I made an early list of this last week, and I posted it on Instagram. It was kind of my rough draft, list. I was trying to get some reaction from people, see what they would say. Here, I got to read to you the Anthony Miller comment. I got to find this here. So yeah, I say the same things you said. Like, though, he showed enough for me that, like, I feel like, okay, the guy was finally healthy at the end of the year, right? Like, that's where I felt like as soon as he hit like week 11 and from then on, he was really, at least week 11 through 15, he was really good. And he didn't do much in 16 or 17, but it felt like he was healthy, right? And yeah, like, Trubisky can make a player decent. He made, Allen Robinson there. And Trubisky's an interesting one to me too. I don't think Trubisky's great, but I think he's still
I think he can be
fantasy
good enough.
relevant. Yeah. It's something. There's something there enough where I'm not all out on him completely. He showed a lot the year before. I mean, he showed enough. I feel like there's something there. But so this is one of the Anthony Miller comments is Anthony Miller, a sleeper every year. I mean, really though? Like,
it's pretty young, so it's still funny though, because I think he was probably in the
guy wrote back.
He
said, "And never does anything. Such a joke. Never does anything."
Well, I mean, I'm not really going to go to task on that guy.
Then somebody else
It's not like
exactly.
he's had a wonderful year.
But then always hyped up, and then never hear about him in the season. I mean, really, he's only played 2 seasons. He was hurt.
yeah,
this
super
year.
young. Yeah.
Like,
Okay. This is
people like they hype players a little too quick, and then they give up on him a little too quick. Don't give up on this guy too quick.
Yes, and what I like about it too is you can see that not always the greatest catch percentage. Once again, I think that's more of Trubisky's deal, but they started targeting him a lot more. And there was a stretch where, you would go through phases where you're only getting 1 to 3 targets, which is not going to be conducive to anyone trying to be fantasy relevant. But in weeks 11 through 15, it was actually very good, right? So 11, 9, 13, 4, and 15 targets. I mean, you almost hit 10 targets 4 out of the 5 games. And once again, you're not catching a ton of them, but I mean, he had the 9 catches out of 13 targets, 9 catches out of 15. Both of those games, when he was able to do that, he went over for over 100 yards. And like I said, he only had 2 touchdowns this year.
Yep.
So his numbers are drastically underestimated. I mean, 650 for 2 touchdowns, and you might as well call the first, 5 games of that season a complete waste of time because of his injury and because of where they were at. So, yes, I get where everyone's coming from, but that is why we say that there's that hint. I think the talent really is there. I think the problem is much more getting the young guys on the same page.
The funny thing is, though, it's also like Anthony Miller is actually older than you would think. He's going to turn 26 this season.
Yeah,
which surprises you, but the
He's
thing
more
is,
mature,
right? I know. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how to take that. That's the thing. I can say that, but I don't actually know what that means. Like,
it's actually pretty. I think that's good. Because he has to, and you see this a lot, right? You get scared because you don't want them to be too old. Like, are they over the hill? Have they gone? But he's only played 2 seasons, so. And we all know Chicago needs whatever bright stars they can come up with.
And I don't want people to yell at me if I make this comparison, but I'm like comparing the players. I'm just saying comparing similar stats maybe for 2 seasons.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
So no, if you look at like what Chris Godwin did his first 2 years, the thing is he was
Compare him.
He was younger. He was, he is younger. But so year 1, Godwin 34 catches. Anthony Miller, year 1, 33 catches. Year 2 for Chris Godwin, 59 catches. Year 2 for Anthony Miller, 52 catches. It's similar. I mean, okay, this is why I'm not saying yardage. The yardage was a little bit more for Godwin and a little bit more touchdowns was there. Well, actually, it was just reverse. In year 1, Miller went, 7 touchdowns. Then he went to 2. So he had 9 over the first 2 years. Godwin had 8 over the first 2 years. Their catches are almost similar. Godwin did have a little bit better yards per catch. That was, that's where it was. Their targets were Chris Godwin's year 1, 55 targets. Anthony Miller's was 54. And then it was 95 for Godwin, 85 for Miller. That's very similar to the 2 years. Just stats. Just looking basic stats. Don't look at anything about the players. Don't look at anything else. But we could see the growth with Godwin. And we knew Godwin was going to be good. Everyone knew Godwin was going to be good, right? That was just, you knew, like, maybe you didn't know even to the extent how good he became this year, but everyone knew Chris Godwin was going to be good, right? I mean, you just knew it. But Anthony Miller is just looked at like he's nothing, right? So I'm not saying he's not going to turn into a Chris Godwin season this year, but he's not at the bottom end of everything. He's better than he gets credit for, I think. So I mean, it's just saying we've seen this level of these players rise like this before. It's not going to be unheard of if Anthony Miller has 80 catches this year for 1,000 yards. That's not crazy. So I think he can definitely pull that off. So Anthony Miller, number 3 for both of us. So that means let's go to your number 4.
Number 4. Once again, there's not a ton to point to as far as what he accomplished last year. I think everything pointed in the right direction. It wasn't like an Anthony Miller necessarily where you're wondering if he's going to flounder in the middle. But Irv Smith Jr., so the tight end from Minnesota, I think is a very good young tight end. He was a rookie. They still had Rudolph. And obviously he, didn't cut into his targets nearly as much as we would like to see. But at the same time, he's just a very good athlete. I mean, he comes from he went to Bama. He runs a 4.6 40, strong, tall. He's kind of one of these hybrid. I guess he's not that tall for the NFL. He's 6'2", but he's kind of one of these hybrid tight ends that is more like another wide receiver you have out there. And I think that I saw enough from him to see that he is capable of making that jump ahead of tight ends. When I usually like to grab them when they're kind of like year 3. I think Irv Smith Jr. can overtake Rudolph because you already see him declining a little bit. He's still a good player, good tight end. But as far as pass catching ability and getting open, Irv Smith is, in my opinion, has already overtaken him by the end of the year. I think he is that good. And I think he'll be a good kind of plus there's so many weapons on that team, right? So the fact that if Thielen and Diggs are both healthy, Irv Smith will be able to run wild in the middle of the field. So if he catches fire, he is going to be a great asset to have, especially in a tight end situation, which, after you get past the top 3, who really cares if you have 7 or, 13th? They're all kind of doing the same. So Irv Smith is my number 4.
He almost made my list, actually. He would have been my tight end pick. If I didn't pick a tight end, he would have probably been my pick. And yeah, the talent he showed that he can play. And Kyle Rudolph caught some touchdowns this year, but Kyle Rudolph's not dynamic in any way anymore. He's just there.
He's a good overall player.
Yeah, he's
really
just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like this one because I didn't come up with the tight end. I mean, there was some tight. Do you have any other tight ends? This is the only one you have.
The only one.
So there's other guys like. I know people are going to throw out Ian Thomas now because of Greg Olsen being gone. I just don't know if I believe it with it.
I'm not going to lie. I almost wanted to throw Greg Olsen on this list.
Right, if he goes somewhere else.
Yeah,
right,
right now he's floating, but if he goes somewhere where they really need him.
I'm just not sure Ian Thomas is any good. Like I think he's had chances before. I mean, he might do something, but I don't know if it was there yet. Jonnu Smith, people are going to say.
I don't think Olsen really was doing that great in that offense either. I just don't think it's that tight end friendly at the moment.
I don't know if it will. I know Jonnu Smith is going to be one that people are going to bring out.
I think that's
I think he might be a decent one.
That's a legit one.
Well, those are the kind of the guys I look at. And I actually like maybe Dawson Knox from Buffalo. I think there's something. He's interesting. He's interesting.
He showed something too.
Those are some of the guys, but I like Irv Smith best out of those as well. Gesicki's too good now to be a sleeper anymore,
I know, right?
So.
He actually is.
So, all right. So I'll go my number 4. So this one, there's a bit of the issue is an injury, and it was an ACL. So I went with Preston Williams from Miami here. So he had the ACL injury when I can't remember. It was during the season. Obviously, it was more like November. I think it was November-ish, end of October, November, which kind of can put it iffy on his status for the beginning of the year, right? That's the kind of sometimes they'll be back. You never know with ACLs anymore. You see people recover really quick, and then you see some that linger almost for a while. Well, let's just say he is ready to go at the beginning of the year, because what happened Cooper Kupp the other year? He was a late injury, and he was ready to go week 1. So Preston Williams, and this is the reason why I'm not sold on Devontae Parker. Preston Williams was better than Devontae Parker until Preston Williams got hurt. He really was. He looked better than him. He was really their go-to guy over Parker. Parker didn't break out until Preston Williams got hurt. Preston Williams he got hurt after week 9. So before that, weeks 1 and 2, 5 targets, 6 targets, then 12, 7, 6, 8, 7, 9. He was getting targets. He's playing well. Miami was really bad at this time too. This is before they even really kind of Fitzpatrick was able to really get unleashed. But I honestly think that Parker's season wouldn't have happened like it did if Preston Williams was still there. And I saw enough from Preston Williams where I think if he's healthy with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I believe he could have a really, really good season. And the injury is going to scare people off. He's going to be way down there because of that. He's going to be, again, another guy. I love these guys that you can just get at the end of a draft that I think have talent. So that's why Preston Williams made my list despite the injury. And actually, despite the injury, he's still ranked 49th right now. People are kind of just thinking, he's going to be there. So, and the latest news saying he's ahead of schedule, but I think they always say that at this point when it's this early on. If he's actually behind schedule, you won't hear about that until he's not in training camp and not playing in preseason games. But Preston Williams, my number 4.
I like that one. Talent is definitely there. And as we say, it really has to do with the QB. But yeah, I like that pick.
Yep. All right, this is it. Number 5.
Number 5 is someone that has been around for a while, but is getting overlooked on every list I've kind of looked into, and that is going to be Golden Tate. So he goes over to New York, and a lot of people hopefully I'm not stealing your thunder here. Hopefully, do you have a QB in the last one?
I don't.
Okay.
But I don't.
So a lot of people are going to talk about Daniel Jones a little bit as like a sleeper.
He was going to be my.
Okay.
I didn't have quarterback, but it would have been Daniel Jones.
Okay. So Daniel Jones is going to be a lot of sleepers. You will hear about him because he did have a pretty good rookie year. I'm not going to lie. On a New York team that wasn't all that great. And Golden Tate is a wonderful wide receiver at running routes and getting open and making sure you secure the ball, all of that stuff. He's just a very good wide receiver. He's never going to be the biggest touchdown maker. But even last year, when you had Daniel Jones learning the ropes, when they weren't doing that great, when at the end of the year they were running the ball a lot with Saquon, he was surprisingly good. I mean, he started playing at week 5. Right, he missed the first 4 games. I believe that was a suspension or whatever it may have been. Week 5 through week 17, if you look at those weeks, he ranked as the 25th overall wide receiver. I don't think that he is going to go wild and he has, top 10 opportunity. But I think he is just a very solid play that you can probably put as a wide receiver 3, feel very, very good about it, and you don't have to spend a whole lot on him. And not to mention if, say, Daniel Jones really does do a lot better than people than he did this year, and people are correct as he could be a sleeper as well, those numbers will probably only go up. So, Golden Tate. Not a sexy pick, but I think it's a good one.
He's going to be completely overlooked, isn't he?
Yeah. So right now, and this was on the ESPN one as well, he's wide receiver 63, and he wasn't much better on other ones.
Yeah, I think that whole overall offense should be better. I mean, people are actually going to, I know because when I made the early list last week, I got a lot of Darius Slayton. And maybe I need to see more. I don't know what it is. I haven't been completely on board with Darius Slayton.
I know. I think I may be a little bit of bias, but people are going to hate this, but I do feel kind of like he is a type of gadget player in a way.
Yeah, just
I don't think he's an every down guy. I think right now he got a bunch of big plays.
Yeah.
Not to mention Golden Tate will be playing no matter what, and when they get everyone healthy again, because they really did have a lot of injuries between Sterling Shepard and obviously the tight end, even Saquon was banged up. So when you really have a full squad, I don't know where he fits in.
Yeah, it's going to be that team. They should be a lot better. The offense, it feels like they have talent, right? It really does. Jones.
They started getting better. I mean, they can really, I don't think they're that far away. Obviously, their defense could use some help and their offensive line could use some help. So if they address some of those things and Daniel Jones makes another step, I think they'll be surprisingly, I don't know. Maybe they won't be good, but they won't be bad.
Yeah. All right. So here, I'll go with my number 5. Here we go. Finish off the list. And I didn't know what to do with this guy and if he should make my list or not. But the name's well known, but is he actually any good? So I went with McCole Hardman.
Okay. He was on my short list.
So I didn't know what to do with him because it feels weird to even call him a sleeper because it feels like he's so known at this point. But again, he is because where he's ranked and his numbers really, other than in the first few weeks of the season, he had a lot more catches. And then after week 6, he never had more than 2 catches in a game. He wasn't really doing much, in that regard. And he ended up with 26 catches on the entire season, playing 16 games. That's not a lot, but the guy is extremely fast. And this could tie into what happens with Sammy Watkins. Are they bringing Sammy Watkins back? If they didn't bring Sammy Watkins back, he's going to shoot up the boards, right? Like he has to.
I mean, without a doubt. Because Sammy, I just pulled it up to get a lay of the land as far as target summary.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill had 88, right? And he also missed a bunch of games.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins had 90.
Yep.
And then Demarcus Robinson actually had 55.
Yeah.
And then we went to Hardman at 41. And then after that, it completely falls off. Pringle has 16, and then there's hardly anything. But remember, too, Travis Kelce is there, and he had 136. It's a very unusual distribution.
A lot of this ties into Sammy Watkins, though, because at first there was he said something like, oh, maybe he'll sit out the year kind of a thing. And then now it's Chiefs want to find a way to keep him, but you can't really pay Sammy Watkins, can you, on this team?
I don't know why you would.
Exactly. They did originally to get him. He had a pretty good deal there for him. It was a pretty good contract. You can't pay him that again. And I kind of feel like somebody out there, just somebody, wants to take that chance on him yet.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Maybe I'm crazy, but I honestly believe that offense is no worse off if instead of Sammy Watkins, they just start the guys they have and Demarcus Robinson and McCole Hardman fill in for him. I don't think anything changes.
No, I don't think so either. And Hardman, it might not do anything, but he's one of those, again, a guy I think you take a chance on because you seen this before where the guys like maybe they're rookie or they're more just like a big play guy. They don't really do much else than that. And then eventually they become, this is all going to depend on what he does and if he can actually become this kind of player where he can be used all the time. Right now they could use him as, for his speed and for a big play type guy. It's going to depend on if he can change that. So that's why he's going to, there's a chance. It's really hard to say exactly how it's going to be used, but you don't get guys much faster than him. And just that alone just makes me feel like you can find a way, right? Find some way to use him more. And it really, if Sammy Watkins is gone, they're going to use him more. Demarcus Robinson will be used more too. You could put Demarcus Robinson on this list if you wanted to. Somebody's going to have to step up a little bit more. And if Watkins isn't around, and I just can't see how you bring Watkins back and pay him any money. I can't see it. I just can't. It just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, I guess. So that's why I went with McCole Hardman to round out my list. See how it plays out. But all right, that's it for top 5 sleepers. I think maybe next week we bring back another list. Maybe we go deep sleepers because as we were doing this and I'm looking again at the ranks, I found some guys I like.
I did too. I mean,
but they're down the list where they don't really make sense for this list. But you go way down the list, and I kind of get excited about those guys. I love the deep sleeper list.
I did too. And really, I mean, the whole reason about doing this is to highlight players that maybe people aren't thinking about or have a view that I don't think is exactly correct. Because that's why I like to talk about Bryce Love too. I mean, it's much more like as soon as we find out if he's healthy, it will change things, right? Right now, he'd probably be a deep sleeper, but there's a ton of names that we can talk about that will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there definitely is. So we'll do that next week. Talk to you guys then.